Hi, welcome to everyone. This is our third webinar. My name is Catherine Hodak, and I am the Sales and Marketing Coordinator for Team Logic North Bay of San Francisco. Today, we have a great presentation from Salim, and I'm going to have Todd introduce him shortly. But just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat or into the Q&A, and I will be monitoring those and interrupting Salim. He said he's totally open to being interrupted and engaging with whatever questions you have live, so please make sure and ask questions if you have them. Uh, at the end, if you stay to the end, there will be a raffle, and whoever is on the call will be in the raffle, and you will win a charcuterie board from Tilted Platter, which is a local vendor, for $200 for your company. So I hope that you will stay right to the end. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Todd, who I'm sure all of you know is the president of our Intrepid company. I'm going to let him introduce Salim to you. So without further ado, Todd, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks everyone for coming. Super excited to introduce you to this product today. As a business, we've been using it for about a year now, and I personally did not like using VPN and trying to connect to our own server. We now have moved our server to the cloud, but having something that's always on and not having to connect, and I know is much more secure, is a very important thing for me. And I'm excited to be able to announce and introduce to all of you um, Citricom Control One. And some of you know that there was a recent vulnerability to VPNs for SonicWall. And we've in the past been a SonicWall partner. And there are a lot of SonicWalls out in the field in our client base. So we've been urgently migrating to this product over the last 2 weeks, especially all the ones where people are using the VPN functionality where the vulnerability happened. So we now have experience of onboarding about 30 clients, and it's been going pretty seamlessly. We have had a few things that we've had to address, but Control One's been an amazing product, and we love working with their team with the goal of supporting all of you next level security. So I'm sure some of you have questions about that. So Salim's here to walk you through the product, and we're going to leave a lot of time for questions and answers. So please hang with us. Take it away, Salim.
All right. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And Todd and Catherine said, ask questions. This is your time. And I want you to walk away feeling like you know a little bit more than you did when we started. So to kick things off, right, we're going to talk a little about the cybersecurity landscape, not in a way that is super technical, but in a way that will resonate to you. I used to have a slide up that said the world, change is coming. And someone actually interrupted me during a presentation and said, you actually have to change that because change isn't coming. Change is here. It's all around us and it's in everything that we do, whether you're in the business world, the personal world, you're dealing with children or adults, doesn't matter. Change is happening all around us. So we'll talk a little about what is happening in the security landscape, talk about how Team Logic can help you ride the course of these changes and be better off than where you started. And again, time for questions and what to expect next. So, as we kick things off, right, change is no more present than in the workplace. As you think about your business, as you think about your business that you've worked in the past or other places your family and friends work in, the work has changed and the workplace itself has changed, right? It's no longer defined. It's no longer an office where everyone comes to. Right now, it's the office is the couch. It's the coffee shop. It's because they have good Wi-Fi. The coffee table because you need to get something done for the day. Right? It's anywhere that we live. It's hybrid, and it's vastly different than there was, even a matter of 5 or 10 years ago. I've worked remotely. I live in upstate New York, so I'm on the other side of the country from you guys. But I've worked remotely for a decade now, prior to COVID. But I know that's accelerated a lot of things. And one of the things that's really accelerated over the last decade is this move to the cloud, right? To facilitate your move out of the office, IT had to move out of the office as well. And what I mean by IT is all of the things that you deal with, the services that used to be in-house, the email exchange servers, your data used to connect to a server in the office. Like Todd mentioned, you used to have a VPN to connect back into something that was in the office. Now that thing is out in the cloud somewhere, and it may be in a business cloud like in Azure or AWS. For a lot of everyday folks like me, right, it's in Microsoft. We went from Office on a disk to Office in the cloud in Office 365. We went from hard drives, right? I've got a boxes full of hard drives with pictures and documents and all the things that are probably 10 years old because everything for the last decade has been stored in the cloud, right? We've all done it. We're all aware of it, potentially aware of it, but it's all happened over the last decade. The problem with moving out of the office and behind the security of the office is that you lose control when the data is outside of the firewall, outside of the serenity and security of the office. How do you protect it? Right now, it's a username and password that gives anyone with that username and password access to the system. So IT in the world, has shifted to this model of lock it down. But how do you do that when most of it, aside from what you're doing, is outside of your control? That's created a dynamic shift in how we have to operate to protect you and your business and your clients and your friends and family. Because it's not just a business problem; it's everyone's problem that we're dealing with in cybersecurity. Whether it's grandma getting scammed by the person that calls, or your accountant getting phished because they clicked on an email that was targeted from another vendor. It's a problem. To precipitate this problem, the bad guys that have always played this cat and mouse game are adapting how they operate, how they work. So instead of hacking through firewalls like they used to back in the day, they're now hacking through people. The people that they're hacking through are where the weakest link is, because we left the office. We left the firewall, so they don't have to hack through the firewall anymore. We're outside of the realm. Things have gotten bad because we all know ransomware, right? We've seen the screens of death and the lockdown of the system. The bad part of cybersecurity is not ransomware. Ransomware is something that's tangible that you can recognize. What the problem is malware. Malware, it used to be benign and it was just a bunch of screen pops, right? Send your computer to IT after you spent a half an hour clicking away at the little X's, and they come back and it was magically fixed. Now malware sits on your computer for days or months. And the average dwell time of a typical malware is anywhere from a couple of months to almost 9 months, where they sit in your system and they gather data and they gather information. Then they post the malware after they've gotten all of this information that they can blackmail you with. Right? The world has changed dramatically in terms of how they operate. What hasn't changed is how we protect some of the networks. So I like to play this game, right? If you think about everyone that's on this call, in the chat, go ahead and think about what year this is, right? Yahoo search was the best search engine on the planet. I think it might have been the first search engine on the planet, next to a few minor internal things. The IBM smartphone was the first smartphone that came out, and Netscape launched SSL, which is an encryption technology that allowed us to buy something on the internet for the first time. Anyone have a guess as to what year that was? If you pop it in the chat, Todd, if you can, or Catherine, if you can pop it in the chat there. What do you think that year it was?
Stephanie said 2000. David said 93. another David said
Nice.
94. Dina said 94. So there's a couple of 93s, 94s.
Yeah. 94 is it.
Oh,
So
nice work.
Stephanie's living in the same world that I am because I feel like things didn't go that far back. But in 2000, we were dealing with flip phones and the Nokias, not these phones. But if you think back, that was 20 years ago, and we had flip phones. Now we have quantum computing, or the closest thing to it in our pockets every day. So it's funny there. But that 1994, things started to change, and things started to change in security as well. And Cisco, a brand that probably everyone recognizes, launched the first firewall. Right? It's called the Pix Firewall. They launched the first firewall to keep the bad guys out of your corporate network. 30 plus years later, most businesses are still securing their networks in that same way. Sure, the technology has changed, but they're still relying on a piece of hardware to protect the four walls of the office that most of the people don't even come to. Right? And the data and the information doesn't live inside of those four walls. So when you think about it, what are they protecting? We live in this modern age of cloud computing and resources out wherever we want them and working from the coffee shop and the hotel and wherever else. So how do you protect yourself? Right? You have to protect yourself in layers. And the team at TeamLogic has probably been telling you this for quite some time of, hey guys, we need to add this tool, or we need to do something a little bit differently. We need to do, something else because the model has changed. The threat actors have changed how they operate, and we have to continuously change how we operate to protect you as a business and as an organization and as a person. Right? Layers of security, we call it defense in depth, but ultimately it's just multiple layers of things that you have to do to protect yourself. The first layer we all are very, very familiar with, right? Complex passwords. It used to be just a password, then it became a complex password, then it became a 20-character password, then it needed, special characters and whatever else in there, and pass phrases and things like that. The problem with passwords is that we're all human, and we have to find a place to put those passwords, and we don't always put them in the right place, right? We put them in notes, we put them, write them down, we put them on the screen for the world to see in the Super Bowl. We're humans, we make mistakes. And the challenge of remembering all of these things has been put on us. That's where Todd and the team has likely informed you about password managers. That's the path forward of putting in a password manager, so you don't have to remember this. You don't even have to remember what you typed. It'll generate a password for you, and you can use it across all your various systems. That one thing will help you as an individual secure and as a business secure. The problem is the flip side of the equation. What are you typing your passwords into? Chances are you recognize some of the logos on the screen there, right? You probably have a phone that's made by one of these manufacturers that you put your passwords and your credit cards and your flights, passport, your license can go in there now. Think about all of the data that all of the apps that you have on your phone at any given time have about you as a person. Now think about how much of that information is reused in your business. It's very different world out there. We can't do those types of things anymore, right? 16 billion passwords were leaked from 3 major brands earlier this year. That's nothing new. That doesn't surprise us in the world of cybersecurity, because just a couple of years ago, there were 24 billion passwords available for sale on the dark web. And if any of you are thinking about the math behind all of this, there's only 8 or 9 billion people on the planet. So how can there be 24 billion passwords available? That's 3, 4, 5 passwords for every person that's on this call right now that's available on the dark web that a malicious actor can get access to. Threat actors now are they're not breaking into systems, they're logging into systems because they have the data that they need, right? Multi-factor authentication, something else we've heard about for quite some time, that is a necessary step. But unfortunately, it's not enough because, as I've said before, the threat actors are getting one step ahead. They're learning ways to bypass multi-factor authentication, whether it's through a dedicated phishing effort, through SIM swapping or something like that, right? Or just token encryption where they're jumping in the middle of these sessions to get the token and get into these sites. Big companies, small companies alike, this is happening to. So what do you do? How do you how do you protect yourself in all this? This is a scary world, but it's the world that we live in because we've adopted technology to help us live our lives more comfortably and be more productive at work. Right? That's what shadow IT is. It's anything that IT doesn't know about that you're using in your business. But I take shadow IT a bit further than just your business because now the business is at home, right? You're working from home, you're working from wherever all the time. So shadow IT is not only the smart light or the smart plug that you put into your house. Sorry about that. You guys not see the screen?
No, you're doing a
Were
great
you
job of
sharing a
presenting.
presentation?
Yeah,
We were just listening to you talk.
Oh my goodness. I
yeah,
thought the screen was being shared the whole time. I
yeah,
apologize
no
sincerely.
problem. I just wanted to confirm, like, I thought maybe you were leading into your presentation.
Been talking the whole time. I apologize.
No
Let me
worries.
figure out where the Zoom share went, and there we go.
There we go. Awesome.
My apologies, folks. Is not my first rodeo.
Stephanie says you're doing great.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
This was a
So
test. Are you paying attention? What's the quiz?
there you go. So we were talking about shadow IT, and this is any type of technology that you're using to get your job done. But it's also all the technology that is in the environment that you were trying to get your job done in. That can be in the office, that can be at home, that can be the POS system on at the coffee shop that wasn't set up properly and is on the same network. It's very dangerous. You want to work as a user from anywhere, but also on anywhere, whether it's your laptop or your tablet or your phone. You need to communicate with work, and all of these things are dangerous in the network environment, right? So when you're thinking about how you protect yourself, right? You have to protect yourself in a model that keeps you secure, right? It's got to be closed, right? What closed means is that the doors and windows into your home. I love the housing analogy because when you think about locking your front door in a home, if you leave your windows open, the bad guys can still get in. A closed home is one with the front door and the windows and every access point into your home closed. That's the same thing as a closed network. When you close down your network, you basically say only the trusted folks that are in the network can get in. And when they're in the network, they can't get anywhere that I don't want them to get. Right? And software defined is more of a model that is always up to date. I've talked a lot about how the bad guys are constantly staying up to date with what's going on. They're using the profits from their ransomware schemes and malware schemes to build better businesses. A number of years ago, these guys were, a bunch of people down in basements, hacking away trying to get a couple bucks. Nowadays, these are cyber crime organizations that mirror the mafia and big multi-billion dollar corporations globally. It's no longer a cat and mouse game. They're using machine learning, they're using AI, they're using all the tools that you're seeing in your fingertips now in your browser and your phone and everywhere else. They've invested in these technologies for the last few years to get better at their game. A hardware appliance and a hardware approach to security, putting in a firewall in the office, can't keep up because it can't stay up to date unless someone is pushing the button to update it. In a software defined world, not only is that threat intelligence real time, it's also current and up to date. So as things are happening in the world, it's adjusting and adapting to what's going on to better protect you. And back to those layers, right? There is no silver bullet in security. There isn't the one shot that's going to kill the vampire. There has to be layers because these guys are always evolving and getting better. You have to have a multi-layered approach to keep them out of every layer. If they get past the front gate, then they have to get stopped at the front door. If they get past the front door, then the bedroom doors are locked. They get there, they then have to get into the safe. That's the layers of the multi-layered approach that we're talking about and thinking about when it comes to cybersecurity. So one of the tools that have come up over the last, 5 to 10 years is VPNs. VPNs have been brought in the forefront as a connectivity tool and as a security tool in a lot of cases, been marketed as a security tool. But I want to share a couple things about VPNs, right? There's two main types of VPNs. They're personal VPNs. These are the Nords and Express VPNs and some of the things you see the commercials for on TV, right? These are personal VPNs, and they're designed to hide your identity on the internet, right? They mask your IP so folks don't know who you are or where you're coming from, and they encrypt your traffic. They don't protect you on the internet. They protect you from people seeing things and knowing where you are on the internet. Remote access VPNs, these are the ones we've used for businesses for quite some time, are just that. They're remote access. They're designed to give you access to that server that Todd mentioned earlier that was in the office, that's now in the cloud. That VPN was meant so that you could print to the office when you were working from home or get access to that file that you needed. Neither of these tools protect you on the internet. They're not keeping you safe on the internet. They're just hiding who you are. But it's not going to stop you from going to a bad website. It's not going to stop you from clicking on a bad link. It's not going to stop you from downloading malicious files or malicious code to your computer. It's just going to keep you hidden. It's like Harry Potter's invisible cloak. Just going to keep you hidden, but you're still in the room. You're still susceptible to all of the things. VPNs as a category or in these two types of things that we know primarily ultimately create security risks because as I'll go back to that shadow IT, right? When you turn on a VPN, your computer is now in your corporate network. And anything that connects to your computer, your kids' PlayStations, the Xbox, their computer that's downloading who knows what, all the Alexas in your home, all of those devices that are on that home network can now connect through your computer to the corporate network and have access to those resources. Right? VPNs in general don't protect businesses. They make people feel better about browsing the internet, but they don't actually protect them on the internet. Right? Even the big companies, Cisco, I've used them twice now in this presentation. I feel bad about that, but they've been around for quite some time. They're the big guys in the industry. And even they have had breaches VPNs into their system. This happened a couple of years ago. And I like using this as an example because no one did anything wrong except for the user storing his password in the wrong place. Instead of putting it into a password manager, they stored it in his web browser. His web browser got compromised because he was on his computer downloading who knows what. The web browser got compromised. The bad guys got access to a Cisco username and password. They phished this individual and then was able to get into Cisco's network and browse around. This could happen to anyone, whether it's Cisco or GE or you, right? Businesses as a whole are under attack. Small businesses in particular are overconfident when it comes to network security because they feel like they're not the ones that are at risk. It's all the big businesses because that's what you hear on the news. The big businesses, the GMs and Target and Honeywell and Caesars, Facebook, all these companies that you see on the news make the news because they have enough money to pay the ransom and survive. Small businesses are targeted 40-something% of the time in breaches and are breached those instances. And most of them don't get to survive. They don't make the news because they're not big enough, but most of those businesses don't survive the breach because of not the ransomware, it's the exposure of the data that the bad guys took while they were in the system. It's the reputation loss that was there, right? It's the loss of business because you're going to lose a customer that doesn't come back because they went to your competitor when you were down that day. It's bigger than just the ransomware, and it's bigger than just clicking on a bad link. Last thing on VPNs, something I wanted to touch on is the government regulations for if you're doing business with the government has already banned the use of VPNs because they've realized that VPNs don't protect their business and security risks. I bring this up because as we start to see over the last couple of years, I've seen the regulations kind of change to where if you're HIPAA or PCI compliant or are under some other kind of guideline, chances are your regulations are going to be changing to match what these other industry formats and industry compliance requirements are already saying. So let's get to the good part, right? How do you protect yourself? How do you leverage the team at TeamLogic to secure your business, and secure your environment, right? The new rules of cybersecurity, location is irrelevant. It doesn't matter where you are, where you're working, or where your data is. You're in the business and you should be secure. The other side of this is security cannot be optional. It used to be a nice to have. It used to be if you were in this tax bracket or this income range or this thing or this industry, you were more of a target. So it was important to have, but if you weren't, it's not. Nowadays, it doesn't matter who you are because they're sending out mass phishing attempts that look like real emails. It's not bad language anymore or misspelled links. It's an email that comes from Renee, one of your vendors that sends you an invoice every week or every month because she got hacked and she's now sending you a spam email. It's going to come from someone that you know and download malicious code. It's not optional anymore. The other side of this is we have to protect you where you work, not bring you back into the office, not try to get you into a model. We need to make this easy for you as the end user to where you simply open your device, log into that machine, and start working. We do that with Control One, which is a software-defined approach to security and connectivity. Right? It brings security out of the office and into the cloud. It allows you to work securely and remotely from anywhere and connect to anywhere, whether you're in California or New York or in Portugal. Work from where you need to work from for that day securely, knowing that on any network environment that you're on, you're protected everywhere that you go. This is that corporate level security that we had in the office, shrunk down and attached to you everywhere that you go. So that firewall in the cloud now follows you where you're working. We can use that same technology to lock down access to resources in the cloud, Office 365, your line of business apps, anywhere that gives you the ability to enforce conditional access. We now have the ability to manage that because I don't have to manage your location anymore. You're secure everywhere that you go. The threat intelligence is always updated. It's always secured. We're prioritizing voice and video traffic. So, Zoom calls and Teams meetings, those types of things work well. And you've got security wrapped around this whole equation. So no matter where you go or what you do, you're secure. This all comes together with a combination of things. The great part for you as a business owner, you don't have to worry about those things, right? Todd and his team are going to take care of what you need, unlike a traditional firewall where you have to spec the right piece of hardware, buy a box, put a 3-year license on it, commit to something for an extended period of time when you don't know what is going to happen in your business, Control One is software based. Yes, there's a piece of hardware if you have an office.
Can
If you
I
have fire,
can I
go
interrupt you and
ahead.
just ask a question? Stephanie's
Absolutely.
saying if the internet in the office goes down, does the cloud go down?
No, that is a great question, Stephanie. The old way of doing things was routing back through a firewall in the office. So when the internet at the office went down, even though you were not there, you had nowhere to come back to. So you were offline because the office was offline. In Control One, right, going back to this slide, you have a cloud instance in a data center. So as long as you have an internet connection, whether that's the hotspot on your phone, or you went to the coffee shop because they have good fast internet, or you went home and worked, as long as you have an internet connection, you're behind the firewall and protected and secure. If the office is offline, right, that hardware component isn't going to have an internet connection, so you wouldn't have access back to the printer or the file share while the internet was down, but you can still work securely and remotely from wherever you are. So you have a resilience, so to speak, on that. Great question. I'm glad you thought about that. You're not connected to the office anymore. Right? The office isn't the center of your network now. The cloud instance and that cloud in our data center is now your center hub. So the office connects using our hardware, connects into that cloud instance in that firewall. And on the software side, your laptops, your desktops, tablets, phones, any devices you want to put into the system connect through an agent that's always on, or on your personal devices, you can turn it on and off. On BYOD appliances, you can use it as a like a VPN to turn things on and off. On your corporate machines, it would it would be always on, so you don't have to interact. It's tied into your intra or your Microsoft identities, so you don't have to do anything.
Great, thank you. And can you, Stephanie asked, would you please repeat the part about not having access to the shared files?
Okay, yeah, because the office is offline. If the shared files are in the office on a server in the office, because the office internet or power is out, you wouldn't be able to get access to anything remotely into the office. But if those shared files are in Office 365, you still have full access. Does that answer your question, Stephanie?
You know what, Stephanie, here, Stephanie, I just allowed you to talk. So if you want to.
Awesome. Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. I like this. Awesome. Any other questions from the audience before I continue? Happy to answer anything that's come up.
Nothing's listed so far, but if anyone wants to raise a hand and ask, please do. No, so okay, so far, keep going. Thanks.
Yeah, looks like David just asked, does a remote desktop work the same way? And it would just be more of a secure connection. So instead of having to turn the VPN on and then hit the remote desktop session, it would just be a shortcut on your desktop where it would be always on. Because what we're doing is essentially giving you a virtually local network. So even though you're at home and the office is across the bay, we're making it so that that software defined perimeter keeps you inside of the virtual office everywhere that you are. So instead of having to VPN into the network, you're already in the network. So it saves some skips and hops for you as a user. And it's more secure.
David, I've also given you the ability, if you want to ask any follow-up questions, to talk as well.
Does anyone have more than one internet connection at the office?
A few of our clients do, so I think it's worth talking about the SD-WAN.
Yeah, perfect. So that's another part. Stephanie had brought up that internet resilience, right? Or just resilience in general. One of the things that we do is SD-WAN, like Todd mentioned, and that's just really a fancy word for or a fancy acronym for managing the internet connection or multiple connections in a secure modulated tunnel. What we do, what SD-WAN does, right, in layman's speak, it allows you to create a secure tunnel between point A and point B. In this case, your office using the Control One hardware and our cloud data center. That secure tunnel is in our control. So the internet provider, they can't inspect that traffic, they can't molest that traffic, they can't do what they want to it. It's inside of our private tunnel. Inside of that tunnel, we're looking at quality instead of speed. When you call the ISP, they're going to tell you that you need faster speed. Doesn't matter what you call for, they're going to tell you you need faster speeds. We don't
Always.
care about speed. Exactly. And a lot of services that you interact with don't care about speed. Things like Zoom, things like VoIP, and voice phone calls, they don't care about speed. They are more concerned about the quality from point A to point B. That's how all the words come across. That's how all the video and the screen share, when the operator remembers to turn it on, come across the screen. So what we do is analyze that traffic and make sure that we're prioritizing voice and video, so you have better, more snappy response across business applications. The other thing that we're doing is managing internet connections. One internet connection, we're doing that traffic shaping, right? Multiple internet connections, we give you internet resilience. Is your customers now that have multiple internet connections, they have two internet paths. But in a traditional firewall, those internet paths are like separate highways going in separate directions because they have two different carriers, two different internet providers, two different IP addresses. So when, let's say, Comcast goes down and you're in the middle of a phone call or a Zoom call and your LTE picks up, that's a change in path, change in highways. So more often than not, you're going to hang up on that call, or your Zoom call is going to get disconnected and you have to reestablish that connection. In a software-defined SD-WAN model, those internet paths or connections are paths on the same highway going to the same cloud instance that I mentioned earlier. So instead of separate highways going in different directions, you have more lanes on the same highway. And just like having multiple lanes on the same highway, that SD-WAN and traffic shaping is able to move traffic, this voice call or this video input or this thing, across those lanes of traffic. And just like you would bob in and out of traffic, the SD-WAN can do that same thing to get your voice call or your video call into a the data center and off to the public internet in a more secure way. So helps with quality, but also internet resilience, because you're not going to drop internet connections. You're not going to hang up on customers. It's going to be very seamless and invisible. Something else that I want to talk about here, right, in a security model, the way Control One works is that cloud instance is where your security now happens. So before you and your data touch the public internet, or the public internet has the ability to touch you and your systems, they're getting scanned further upstream. A good analogy for this is like moving into a gated community instead of a traditional residential neighborhood. A residential neighborhood, right? You've got everyone that comes down your streets, parks in your driveway, walks up the walkway, and knocks on the front door, right? If that's a bad actor, you don't answer the door, the dogs start barking, send that bad actor away. That's your firewall that's turning away bad, malicious traffic. In a SASE, software-defined Control One model, it's like moving into that gated community. So instead of all of that traffic coming in, clogging up the neighborhood, clogging up your driveway, it's all inspected at the front gate of the neighborhood. That keeps the threats further away from you. It also frees up the streets because you don't have all of the traffic cutting through the neighborhood. So you're not only more secure, you can get better use of your internet connection as a result of a technology like this that's securing you, but also freeing up bandwidth and keeping the trash and malware and adware and those types of things out of the system. So the agent we talked about is going to run on your laptops, desktops, phones, tablets. It's designed to be always on and invisible, so you don't have to, unlike a VPN, interact with it every time you have to go do something. I think David was asking about remote desktop and turning on the VPN. VPNs are user serviceable. They're designed to, when I need something, turn it on. When I'm done with that thing, I turn it off. This is more of a security tool that's securing you and protecting you all the time. So you want it on all the time because it's not only going to protect those bad guys coming in, we're doing DNS and web content filtering, stopping you from clicking on malicious websites, bad links, the nasty places on the internet that you probably shouldn't be going to anyway on your business computers. We keep you away from those bad things to keep you safe as well as keeping bad guys out. And the biggest thing is it's invisible. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to learn another username and password, another complicated setup, another MFA. This ties into your Microsoft logins. It's passwordless, it's always on, it's always secure, and it keeps you connected everywhere that you are, everywhere that you go. And it helps you feel safe and sleep better. The flip side is employees can't turn it off on those business machines. What this means for you is that employees can't bypass security. If they can't get to a website, turn off the VPN and get there. Turn off the content filter, turn off this, turn off that. And a lot of these tools, users can kill those services and keep running. We've built this as a security tool first to help you enforce compliance with wherever those requirements are coming from. So employees don't have to do anything. And in most cases, if you set it up this way, they can't turn it off as well. The importance of them not being able to turn it off comes down to compliance enforcement. Cyber insurance is a growing industry. It's actually one of the fastest growing sectors in the insurance industry over the last 5 years. The reason it's going and growing is because of everything that we're talking about. The bad guys advancing their strategies and getting better at what they do because they're breaking into more businesses, causing more damage, and gaining more profits on the flip side because of ransomware and the blackmail that's happening. So why am I talking about cyber insurance in a cybersecurity presentation? It's talking about a tool. It's because if you have insurance, you've probably noticed the forms changing every year or every 6 months, because insurance companies holistically, right, like to defer risk. They're not in the business of paying out insurance claims that are unwarranted. And they need to make sure that your business is protected. You are doing the right things to protect yourself. If you are doing the right things, then they will pay out. But if you say that you've done X, Y, and Z, and you don't do it, they can now point the finger at you and not pay out. So what we're seeing in the cybersecurity side is the insurance forms are getting more stringent. They were simply just check boxes at one point. Now they're asking more and more and more questions on what you're doing to protect yourself so they can protect you and have your back just like you've expected them to. One of the things that they have in every cyber insurance form that I've seen is making sure that antivirus is on and running anytime a user is in the network. And this is a tool that has bitten a number of companies that I've seen over the last decade, because every company, and for the most part, has antivirus installed in some way, antivirus or endpoint protection or MDR. There's lots of acronyms in the security space, but there's some level of antivirus in place, right? Unfortunately, no one has a good way of making sure that you are accessing Office 365 or OneDrive with your antivirus on. They can get an alert that says a tool is not on and running. But if malware has turned off that tool, you now are spreading an infection across the internet somewhere into your business resources. With the software approach, with Control One, we can help you enforce the compliance requirements that you're dealing with today. But because this is software defined and agile in how it can protect you and secure you, we can protect what comes down the road next year and the year after that in whatever industries that you guys are in. We can ensure that antivirus and endpoint protection is on and running, and make sure that that's a requirement for you to be able to access OneDrive. That's not only going to keep you compliant with the cyber insurance company, that's going to make you feel a lot safer knowing that you can access your resources in this safe manner, knowing that you don't have malware on your system. Your tools are running the way that TeamLogic has set the tools up on the system. And if for some reason your laptop is not running those tools, you're not able to spread infection across the organization. We can quarantine and isolate you off of the network to minimize risk, to minimize your ability to spread the infection to anyone else in the organization. Because the traditional model of network security is the castle and moat strategy, right? Lift the moat, lift the drawbridge. The moat protects the castle, but once you're inside the castle, everyone's free to go wherever they want. In a software-defined manner that Todd and the team are putting out with Control One, we benefit from micro-segmentation. Every user is their own security segment. So there's no more, once you're inside the castle, you can go in every room in the castle. You're only allowed to go into the rooms that you need to conduct your business. It isolates the workloads from one another, not for, to make your job harder, but to reduce the risk of the business. Because the traditional model, when something gets into the organization, it spreads across every user in every department. Anywhere that those machines can talk, they're going to talk and communicate, spread that malware across the organization. And then the incident response is taking down the entire organization for who knows how long to get that business back up and running. Segment, when we're able to segment off users in groups, right? Sales from marketing, from HR, from accounting, from the owners and leadership team, you're able to contain the impacts of a breach. If sales gets compromised, sales is down, but the business as a whole can continue to function and operate because the rest of the organization is segmented. We talked a little bit about resilience earlier, but if you want to talk about it again, like I said, it really is about the ability to work from anywhere on any internet connection that you have available to you securely and remotely. A few of the benefits to you as an end user, right? You're connected and secured all the time in the zero trust model. Zero trust can feel a bit much, right? Especially in the SMB world. It can feel like I don't need this. But in reality, when you think about all of the tools that you use for work, in a zero trust environment, if you need those tools to operate your day-to-day job, you're going to have access to them. That doesn't change. What it changes is the 5 other people that also had access to those same tools that don't ever touch those tools and don't ever need them to do their job. What it changes is what happens if something goes wrong, right? We live in a cat and mouse game. Unfortunately, I can tell you and Todd can tell you to do all of the things, and they're all preventative measures because it takes one good attempt to get into your network, and it takes everyone doing everything right to keep the bad guys out. This is a layer on top of that. Take some of the burden off of you as the user, knowing that you can just do what you want, when you want, from where you want. And as a business owner, your risk profile, your threat surface, your attack surface, and ultimately the risk as an organization is lower because we're keeping the bad guys further away from you. We're keeping you protected from bad links and places that you go, and everywhere is now secure all the time. Let me go backwards. All right. Any questions on anything here? I know we've had a few questions that were very, very good. Towards the end of the presentation, I'd love to answer anything that you guys have, and then we can talk about next steps and what to expect from here.
Okay, so David asked, does it affect overall speed? I know you said the quality is more important, but depending on who's using it, they might be using a rural network with slower speeds.
Yeah, typically, you're not going to see a big degradation in speed. The system is looking at the type of traffic that you're doing. So if you're on YouTube or listening to streaming music or whatever, it's going to deprioritize that traffic. When you're doing something in Office 365 or a Zoom call or things like that, it's going to try to prioritize that traffic. So you'll see different results when it comes to speed tests. You may run a speed test during a Zoom call and see a much different result than if you run it afterwards. Generally, it's not going to affect overall speeds, but you will see differences when you run a speed test. I'm in upstate New York, closer to Canada than I am New York City. So we're in a relatively rural area on a residential internet connection. I get 300 by 30 on good days, but generally don't have any issues. I know I've got partners on Starlink or clients on Starlink. We've got some folks out in the center part of the country on like bonded DSL connections, 2 and 3 meg DSL connections from back in the day that are kind of get just more lanes on that highway. So generally it will work. When you're on things like Starlink, because of latency, we want to do some manual tuning, but generally, most internet connections should work just fine.
Okay, great. And the next question from Paul was, how does this work with guests when they come on site and need internet access?
Great question. So we typically, recommend setting up your Wi-Fi network to have a guest network and have that isolated from the rest of the organization. To a guest user or anyone coming into the organization, they're not going to notice anything differently. What the TeamLogic team is going to do on the back end, though, is build out the segmentation of those networks so that when you're on the guest network, you can't see or do anything besides go to the public internet, or if you want to give them access to the printer so they can print while they're in the conference room, or things like that. We can, because we have more granularity of what's happening inside of the network, you can still give the appropriate rules. But to a guest user, they're going to come in, they're going to sign into the guest Wi-Fi just like they always had and work just the way they always had. But you've got more security wrapped around it on the back end.
Great question. Any other questions?
I just wanted to confirm that is how we set up our guest networks.
Fantastic.
Okay. It doesn't look like there are any more questions at this. Oh, sorry. Paul asked, who are your biggest competitors?
That's a really good question, Paul. And in the small to medium size market, SMB type market, there really isn't a direct competitor because no one is doing what we do in the way that we do it for small to medium sized businesses. Software defined networking, and it is a acronym called SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, is an enterprise technology that's making its way down into small to medium sized businesses now. We have always been in the managed services space, working with folks like Todd and TeamLogic since 2008. So our business has never been enterprise. It's always been bringing innovative technologies down into the small to medium sized sector so that you guys can take advantage of these technologies ahead of others. So when we think about competitors, there really isn't a direct competitor. There are hardware manufacturers that are trying to add a software component. There are software competitors that don't have a hardware component that leave you connecting back into the SonicWall or WatchGuard or any other appliance, Sophos or other appliances. This is more of an upgrade path getting into that software approach.
Thank you. And then there was another question, and this might be a Todd question. What is the cost one-time or ongoing charges?
Yeah, so we will be working with each client on pricing for this. It's customized for each client, but as a part of this webinar, what we're offering is 30 days for free as long as people commit by the end of August, and also professional services to get it implemented. Typically, we would quote our professional services to install a new product. So we're offering that. We've been doing that for those that had the exposure with SonicWall, offering the 30 days and getting them into the new product to try it. So that's probably the best approach. And then we will customize a quote. It is an ongoing monthly, as as Salim described, you have ongoing software that's being deployed. So it's a monthly charge, but there is no hardware fee or any other purchase required.
Great, thanks. And then this is another question from David. It may be better for Todd. All right. We have SonicWall now that handles our DHCP. How do we handle this without the SonicWall?
Good question, David. So our appliance would actually, that bridge that we showed earlier, would actually replace the SonicWall appliance. So when it was time for a renewal or refresh of that device, you would put our appliance in place. We call it the bridge because it connects your physical network to that cloud layer. But at the end of the day, it's handling that local routing, DHCP, and doing what that router appliance, the SonicWall, is doing on that network as well. The difference is the security mechanism, right? That SonicWall is the brains of the operation. So it's getting updated regularly, and all of the security intelligence is on that box. So the box is processing all of that, becomes the bottleneck for the inspection, because the more we're asking it to inspect and secure, the less it can process through the throughput and speed. In a cloud-based model, the box that we deploy is still going to handle the local network, but all of the inspection and firewall rules and the security intelligence and the scanning is happening at the cloud layer. So we're kind of separating that functionality.
Yeah, and I think, David, you and I talked before. If you have a relatively new firewall, what's also possible is to do a IPsec tunnel from that device to the cloud layer that he was discussing. And we would make all the rules shift from that firewall to the cloud firewall, and just basically create a tunnel between the device and the Control1 firewall.
Okay, so it's 12:59 and I want to make sure and do the raffle. So if you can stop sharing the screen, and I will share the raffle screen. And then we may be able to stay on a couple minutes extra for any folks who have questions that haven't had them answered yet. So I have confirmed that everyone who is on the call is on the wheel. So good luck to everyone. This is for the charcuterie board, custom charcuterie board from Tilted Platter, and whomever wins, I will reach out and organize that with you. So good luck. Okay, David K, you are the winner. So I will reach out to you and organize getting you the Platter gift certificate. I'm going to stop recording other than saying thank you so much for this presentation. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Oh, there are a couple more questions. Perhaps if you can stay on the line for a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
But for those folks who, oh, David says, woohoo, I finally won something. Woohoo! Congratulations. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes to answer any other extra questions. But for those of you who need to go, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're having another webinar in a couple months, so please look out in your emails for those, and let us know if there's anything that you want us specifically to do a webinar, and we're certainly open to that as well. So thank you. If you need a drop off, please do, but here's the question for you. Okay, does Control One customer support work through TeamLogic?
Yes, you would call us first. And then if we needed any help with Citricom, they're there for us. They're based in Texas. Yeah, we can get a hold of them at all times.
Okay, and Paul said, I like that. Great. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, to clarify, they're our new partner, and we're not going back to SonicWall. So appreciate you all learning about it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the time, everyone.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.